Sarah Lavonne is the founder of Bundlework.com, a thriving place where any questions or concerns about pregnancy or birth can be answered. She has a YouTube channel that matches her name that currently sits at 209,000 subscribers and over 27 million total channel views. Sarah has built an incredibly successful business off the attention garnered by her channel. Turns out there's a lot of help that people need when it comes to pregnancy and giving birth, and Sarah is the one you can count on to get you through those trimesters. And don't worry, even if you're a single guy like me, wondering what you can get out of a podcast that's a lot about birth, don't worry, we are going to be talking a lot about business, mostly about business today, and in particular, how Sarah managed to do the impossible of taking her audience and having them follow her to a totally different website. This is a notoriously difficult thing. So, Sarah, how are you doing today?
I am awesome. I'm really excited to have a conversation with you about not only YouTube, but also business. But this has become like my new passion that I didn't know I had.
Oh, that is really awesome. So I guess just to kind of get the background here, how long have you been doing this for?
So I've been a nurse for over 10 years. That's how I got my road into labor and delivery land. And I have been on YouTube since I think I posted my first video in December of 2017, never intending to be a YouTuber, to be honest. Like, I just thought there's some ideas, there's some concepts I don't want to repeat over and over and over again for my clients. So I was like, let me record like the 5 big heavy hitter topics to really send to them when they had those questions so I didn't have to repeat myself. And then things started picking up. So I've been on YouTube since then, and then my business was founded the month after I posted my first video. So they are very much on the same track. So I've been around for about 4 years, coming up on 5.
Right on. So, okay, you have been a nurse for a long time. That has kind of been the career that started this all for you. And you started making these videos essentially out of necessity, trying not to repeat the same information over and over. You could kind of just send somebody a link. This seems to be kind of a common occurrence, I find, with YouTubers. You know, they have like a day job, and then there's all these people asking them the same questions over and over, and then they just kind of turn it into content. Not even like with a dream, just like their dream is just to not answer the same questions over and over again.
Yeah.
So I think this is very relatable for a lot of people. And why don't you tell us a bit about bundlebirth.com? Because I think like one big question people have about like monetizing a YouTube channel, especially off of YouTube, is how do you do it? Like, what do you sell on there, and how do you essentially turn your traffic into a business?
Well, YouTube has actually been my biggest referral source. And I know that if you've been on YouTube for a while, I will say YouTube is not the easiest to maintain for 4 years. And I have posted a video a week almost consistently for 4 years. And
Wow.
that's not easy. And they say like, what is it, 2 years? If you can manage 2 years, like you'll be successful, because it's a lot of work. And I remember thinking over and over again, like, why am I doing this as I'm building a business on the bundle birth side when YouTube, first of all, wasn't monetized at the time. I wasn't making a dime. And I just kept having this sense that just keep going with YouTube. And what's happened is it ends up being my free marketing, because if we talk about sales, right, you want to hit a pain point, and there's a lot of pain points, literally and figuratively, that birth hits for families. They're scared. If you think about the culture surrounding birth, and especially like when I was in the hospital, the number of families that would come in just terrified. And I'd say, have you done childbirth education? And they'd go, well, no, what's happening to me? To the point of not even knowing what was happening within their body when they were having a contraction. And then I'd see the ones that came in that had done education, and they had a completely different experience. And so, I knew education was important, but to make education accessible to the masses was sort of the idea with YouTube. So on YouTube, I hit the pain point of people are scared to have babies. The cultural viewpoint around birth is that it's painful, that it's scary, that, my vagina is going to tear in two, that I'm going to end up with massive surgery, all of these fears, let alone all the other ones out there. And what I dream of is really impacting the world of families to say, it's okay. You don't have to worry about that stuff. And even if it were to happen, one of my taglines I end every video with is flex and flow. And don't forget to flex and flow, with the idea that we got to hold our hands open to whatever life throws at us. And we can be flexible and go with the flow. And when we do, we're not grasping so tightly. And so by hitting that pain point, we give them a taste, we meaning me, myself, and I on YouTube, we give them a taste of what it feels like to get some information and go, oh, well, now I understand that test that my doctor just did that I thought meant I had an STD when it really means nothing. There's so much unknown and so much fear surrounding the unknown that I go, no, we're not going to be afraid of that. This is what it is. You're grown, you're smart, you're wise, you deserve this information. Let me hand it to you. And then let me also tell you that if you feel good with this 20-minute snippet, you're going to feel really good with my full childbirth classes. You got to be taking childbirth classes. You're going to feel even better as a partner if you take a coping with labor class to know how to support your partner. You're going to feel even better about taking care of your baby if you do my infant safety and CPR class. So that pushes them that direction, but you're actually adding value to their life through YouTube. And sneaky little sauce here for all of the pregnant people. If you watch every video on my channel, you probably don't need much of a childbirth class, because I have kind of given it all away, and not all, and that we can talk about if you want, as far as how do I balance what I give away for free versus what I sell. But to me, I believe in adding value to people's lives and inspiring confidence through education. And so when you give them that value, they go, ooh, there has to be more. And so that sends them to the site for online classes, which is entirely passive income. I do in-person classes in LA, and then I offer labor support one-on-one with clients in Los Angeles and or also virtually. And so even through COVID, I had a massively full roster of people all over the world as clients, where I would get to know them and help them through their labor and birth. But then what would happen? They found me on YouTube, thanks to YouTube. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Well, now that I've been around for 4 years, at some point, you gotta kind of start recycling some stuff. I have a hard line in the sand related to certain topics I keep exclusive to my classes. One of those is epidurals. And if you know anything about labor and birth, if you are scared of the pain, you're gonna wanna know about epidurals. And so I don't give you my spiel on epidurals online. That's a hard stop, no. Most coping practice is going to be on my class, but what I do to supplement that is I'll talk about, say, for instance, the importance of position changes in labor, right? Of changing positions, moving around. Why? What are some positions? Why does it help? It helps you cope with labor. And that contributes to my coping with labor class, if that makes sense. So then they're like, oh, I know I need to change positions, but how do I change positions? And then the how is really answered through my class. Mind you, I tease the how. So I give a couple. I'm not going to be like, well, you should do it, but watch my class instead. That kind of feels dishonest a little bit and a little bit clickbaity. So I still offer a couple, but I'm like, if you want all of them, because now I've proven to you through evidence that position changes are necessary, take my full coping with labor class. And then that kind of pushes them that way. All infant safety stuff is actually in that class. So I'll tease newborn care. So taking care of your newborn, how to swaddle, for instance. That I don't offer in an infant safety class, but then I talk about the importance of safety in swaddling. And therefore, if you want to know more about safety with your newborn, knowing that's a pain point, go take my infant safety and CPR class online. Does that make sense? So you're teasing enough, and it's sort of giving the why it's important. That this is important, but I'm going to tell you how to do it by actually paying for my course.
Sure. And I think there's also an advantage with having a course where the information is all laid out in a very organized way. I think with YouTube, you're kind of like posting a new topic every week, right?
Totally.
So it can kind of, yeah, maybe all the information is technically there in your channel, but in order to like find what's relevant to you,
Right.
it may not be super easy. And I'm sure, especially with something like pregnancy and birth, where there's lots of
There's
concerns
so
and
much.
questions, like you kind of just want the information clear cut and all laid out for you without any questions. And then I'm sure also, like I know you, as you said, you do one-on-one consultations and kind of helping people out that way. I'm sure there's an appeal with talking to you just in person and kind of being able to, or over Zoom or
Mhm.
whatever, and being able to like ask specific questions because everybody kind of has their own situation going on.
Absolutely. Well, and along the labor support side, I think, especially as a birth coach, and there's a lot of people that do that or they're a doula, that there's this interview process that happens where families search out and they interview for personality and connection and expertise. Whereas for me, I kind of already do that through YouTube, right? Like literally my clients that reach out to hire me sometimes don't even want an interview. They're like, "We just want to book you right now. Can we get you on our calendar? I just peed on a stick and I'm ready to go." And I'm like, "Do you want to like make sure it's a good fit and, are you positive?" And they're like, "Nope, take my money because I know because I've built rapport on screen through them. They feel like they know me. They really do because I'm the same person on camera as I am, in person. And so and my expertise has been proven. So I'm positioning myself as the expert in this field. And now, especially with training nurses, that's the added appeal. Like, whoa, you train medical systems, you speak in national nursing conferences, you must be the best. And so that also sort of elevates my like expertise and builds rapport where they're like, yeah, we want you, of course.
Excellent. So could you walk us through like what a day in the life looks like for you now? Like now that you have this business that's clearly doing very well, like what does your life look like these days?
Oh, my life looks very different each day. So it usually starts in the morning. I come into the office, which luckily my office is literally in the same building as my home. So I walk 10 feet away to the office. That was a transition that I made partway through that was so necessary to split home and business. And I check in with my team. So it's what emails are up, what orders are happening, what do I have on the agenda for today. I typically have calls. I like to batch my calls onto 1 to 2 days a week. Mondays are all admin. And then as far as clients are interspersed in there. And then it just depends. Sometimes I'm traveling to speak. Sometimes I'm working on trainings with my team. Sometimes I'm writing new classes and curriculums. My time in the last like year and a half has really been sucked up by the Bundlework Nurses side, which has blown up over the last year and a half. And so, whether that was writing new classes for that, putting together workbooks, different PDFs, designing product for the website, everything on our Bundleverse site, everything we sell is designed by me. The whole website was done by me. Now I'm really working hard on delegating better. But, I am the classic homegrown business where I've literally done everything myself up until about a year ago. And that was a very necessary transition. And then as far as when YouTube fits in, I actually batch film now, and that is the most brilliant, life affirming thing that I could possibly do to maintain. When I was doing it myself, I have an editor. I have a video, the same editor that comes and runs the video side. My team sets up for me. So all I have to do is prep my videos. I use Notion, the app, to organize my scripts and my notes. I do have a teleprompter up when I film, but it's mostly just bullet point notes, or if I have like statistics, I cannot remember numbers to save my life, so I'll have those on the screen. Otherwise, everything is ad lib. I prep and then show up now. Thank goodness. And we batch film. If I'm really focused, I'll knock out like 6 videos in a day. So it's six
Oh my
weeks of
god.
content. Yeah. So
Wow.
that to me, like, especially I'm thinking about the people listening to this that are maybe struggling with the once a week or and really what do they say, like once a day? I don't know how anybody does that. For balance in my life, I am a once a weeker and, maybe a throw in a live here and there, but I batch film, and then I actually right now have batched film for the next like 12 weeks.
Oh,
Also because I'm
wow.
traveling and I'm planning ahead. So that to me is a lifesaver. So we only film once a month, really.
Hmm. So, it, I guess with your life being kind of different every
Hmm.
day, is this what your goal was? Like, did you feel like if when you were a nurse and you were kind of doing the same thing every day? I'm sure being a nurse is pretty chaotic and it's not the same thing every day,
Right.
so to speak. But do you feel like this is what you were reaching for, where your schedule is kind of like it's changing all the time? It's more dynamic. Is this more exciting for you? Yeah.
Great
How
question.
has that been?
I had no idea what I was getting myself into when I quit my job, to be honest. I just know as a nurse, I had worked my way through various roles in a very large hospital system here in LA, and was a manager actually, and finding that like I loved managerial and I loved having a team, but I also missed the bedside, and I'm a really good one-on-one nurse. And when I was a nurse, I felt like, oh, there's just so much of me that's not being utilized. I have all these gifts and passions. And so I got to a place where literally I felt like my soul was going to die there. And which is why I just was like, I'm done, and I'll never work for anyone again. So one of my goals I said from the very beginning was I will never work for anyone again, and I feel pretty confident to say that that is probably what my future looks like, which is just the biggest
Yes.
blessing ever. But to be honest, I'm a nurse by background. I have zero business experience, zero degree, nothing. Like in fact, I'm onboarding a new COO right now, and he's like, "How did you learn this?" I'm like, "Google," or like just asking a whole lot of questions. And so I'm so grateful that I'm in a time and a place where like we have internet access, and I've read tons of books, and I'm very self-taught. But one, I definitely didn't want to be working for anyone again. And I love the random. I get really bored really quickly. I love a challenge. My pace is stupid fast. I complete projects. I learn. You tell me once, I got it. And so I think if I was working somewhere else, slash, not my own boss, slash, doing a business that was a lot more like very regimented, I really think my soul would die in that kind of an environment. And this environment, it's creative, it's innovative, it's fun, it's relational, and it challenges my thoughts that if I have an idea, if anyone's worked in a hospital system, there's so much red tape. And here there's none. I'm like, I have this new product idea. I design it in one day, it's ordered, we ship it like the next week. And on the site, any website changes on the site, like, that kind of freedom in creativity. And really the goal is helping people and providing services and education and, products that equal education and support and confidence building that help. And so the fact that if I come up with a creative idea or anyone around me does, I can be like, yeah, let's do it. And it's just like wham, bam, done. And we're on to the next thing. So
Hmm.
yes, this is the dream. I don't know that I would have said that this was a dream. I wouldn't have been able to define the dream like 5 years ago, probably. But right now, I am for sure living the dream. Just running around, literally bouncing around my house, being like, I love my life because,
Aw, that's
and
amazing.
not to say it hasn't come with struggle. I have cried on this floor more times than I can tell you. I knew where every single per diem job in labor and delivery was in LA for like over a year and a half, up to 2 years. Like it's been rough. It's the hardest thing I've ever done. But I really believe that anyone, if they have enough resilience and grit, and you have to offer a product that actually solves a problem, and that to me connects at a heart level. And that's what we do. We connect in a deeper, more meaningful way than just like, you know, here's your keychain. Not that keychain isn't Let me take that back.
I know what
Let
you
me
mean. I
cut
know
that
what you
out.
mean.
Let's cut that out.
Just-
I'm like, yeah, because there's like really cool keychains out there. We connect in a really heart-centered way that um, I think potentially has lasting lifelong change on people's lives, and that keeps me going.
hmm And do you feel like this was kind of born out of necessity? I think, like, for me, when I went full time YouTube, I was like itching to quit my job and just to have the freedom that you're describing. And I think on some level, I was aware that it would be extremely difficult. And I mean, you've talked about crying on the floor. I've pretty much done the same thing,
Yeah.
trying to make YouTube work and turn it into a business. But it's like there's a even though it can be really difficult and frustrating and kind of confusing
Mhm.
to organize everything, I guess for me at least, I feel that there is a like an inherent desire to do this that makes it worth it.
Yep.
Like when I was working a 9 to 5 job that I didn't super enjoy, that kind of inner fire wasn't there. So even though it was very comfortable and I was making good money, and it was like easier, you could say, it was actually harder
Yep.
because I just was, it was annoying me and I'd wake up every day like, ah.
Mhm.
So yeah, it's the dream can be weird. It
Yeah.
can be super intense, but it kind of, I guess, makes life more interesting.
Well, and you found your niche when you land in a place where you're working so hard. I have never, what's that meme on Instagram I see all the time that's like, I quit my 9 to 5 to work 24/7, like, which is
Yeah.
absolutely the truth. But when you're doing what you love and also what you believe in, it doesn't feel like work. Even now, I literally just got back from the post office and I went and I bought like a million gift cards for Nurses Week for nurses that we can give away. And I'm like, I love my life. This is so great. And that's
Mhm.
work, and obviously that's like the very easy part of my job. That was just running errands. But even when I'm sitting all night designing workbooks and reinventing new ways of doing blah blah blah, like that's so fun to me because I know it helps people. And the other thing is that, like, luckily I am in a profession where my fans on YouTube are the nicest people ever. They send me full DMs that are like pages and pages of their entire birth story. I just gave birth 4 hours ago and you were coaching me, the whole way through. I could hear your voice in my head. I flexed and flowed at this point. Like, how do I ever give up? The moment I'm like, oh, YouTube, I can't do another video, I get a DM like that, or somebody comments about how like they avoided trauma in their labor and birth, or they sought help because of this video. Like, I can't ever stop. I'm stuck in the best way, you know, because you
That's
really are
beautiful. That's
helping
really beautiful.
people. That for me keeps me going.
hmm So, can you take us through the kind of transition process? Like, I think when people hear that you have a team behind you and you can kind of just show up and film 6 videos at once and have an editor do it, and I know you have like a scheduler and all these people kind of helping you behind the scenes, maybe that can seem less relatable
Mhm.
to somebody who's just getting started. So, can you take us through the transition from posting your first videos to having a team?
Oh, yes, I would love to, because I've only had a team for a very short amount of time. In fact, I just hired a chief operating officer April 11th. It is May 6th. And my life has only ever shifted massively in the last like 3.5 weeks. So it is
Oh,
doable.
wow.
And I have done almost everything myself from the very beginning. The very first transition was an editor. So I started on my iPhone. With a bunch of books. I have a picture somewhere. I did not post the first 2 videos I recorded because they were so terrible. And then finally I gave up and I was like, screw it, I'm posting this. My head's like half cut off in the first video. Like, the audio is literally from the iPhone. Like, it's embarrassing, but also amazing for the vault. And then, at some point, what happened? This is so cool. And this is where, like, when you're in the right path, like, the world supports you in that, and I was teaching an in-person childbirth class. This is pre-pandemic. And there was a girl that showed up to watch the class, and she was like, oh my gosh, I've seen you on YouTube. I swear I had like 1,000 subscribers, like like I was not on YouTube at this point, right? And I was like, oh my gosh, I'm so embarrassed. Like I hadn't committed to YouTube. This was in the phase of like, I have 5 videos, that's it. And so I didn't want anyone to know that I was on YouTube. And so we go around for introduction. She's like, I'm a fan of Sarah on YouTube. And I'm like, no. And so she says that in front of the class. And in that class, on the first break, this guy comes up to me and he goes, oh, so you're on YouTube? And I was like, oh, I mean, like, not really, but sort of, yeah. And he's like, no. He's like, if your YouTube channel is anything like this class, you're going to blow up. And I was like, oh, thanks. Like, that's so nice. He goes, no, I work for YouTube. And I was like, oh, I'm sorry. Can you tell me more, please? And so what ended up happening was we did a little bit of a service exchange, and I helped them in their pregnancy. And he was like, it wasn't super tangible, but there were so many little things like, when's your next YouTube video, Sarah? Hey, I haven't seen you post it in a while. Like you gotta do another one. He was my like pacer to keep me going. And then at one point he borrowed me, or that's not a word, lent me a camera. And this was, because at this point I was literally still doing it on my phone. And so he was like, just borrow this camera. You can take it and use it for a little bit. I got to play around. I kind of got into it and like excited. And then I was like, maybe I need to buy a camera. And so he helped me purchase my first, like it was a Canon 80D refurbished with the kit lens, but it was just like one step up. And then I got, I think I had like a little snowball mic that I would just set in front of myself. At one point, like I could afford a boom, but I borrowed some equipment from people. And, there was he in particular was so instrumental in just pushing me forward. And I really don't think I would be here today if it weren't for him. Still to this day, I get texts from him like, look at you. He's no longer at YouTube. He's doing his own thing. But, it's like sort of those instrumental people that really played, and we all need. And if anybody's out there being like, I can't keep going, find an accountability partner that believes in you to just remind you to keep going. Because what he kept saying was, you just have to be consistent. It's not necessarily about every video blowing up or becoming viral or hitting every pain point. It's just about being consistent. And I was like, okay, I'm just going to hold on to that. I'm going to hold on to that. And I did. And really, honestly, I never ever imagined being a YouTuber. When I got my plaque in the mail, I'm like, what is this? Like, I still don't hardly call myself a YouTuber. I'm very much an entrepreneur business person. But YouTube has been one of those like foundations for me that I think when my business felt like it was falling apart, YouTube was still growing. And I could always come back and be like, well, someone's out there wanting some of this stuff. And like, they're commenting and they're engaging, and I'm doing it for them. I'm not doing it for me right now. And, I just have to trust that it'll come back around to me. And then as far as I actually had my current editor, whom I pay full price now, he popped into my life, and it was his wife, this and that. And he worked for me for free for a while. Just because he believed in what we were doing so much. And eventually when I could pay him, we transitioned him to pay him. And, and then not so much with YouTube, to be honest. Like YouTube to me is my advertising time equals money. And, I make money on YouTube through ads and stuff, and I do very few collaborations. But so there's some revenue coming in from that, but honestly, it's all coming through the bundlework.com site. And that has allowed me, based on the growth over there, with it entirely being passive income, for me to say, okay, I'm starting to get overwhelmed. And then my next step was hiring an assistant, which was just catch-all for like, I just need help. And she happened to have a broadcasting degree, so she would do all my setup. She'd upload to him, he'd edit, I'd send edits back. I still do all my own covers. I still do all the back office of YouTube. I still chapter it out, he edits it to me, but I send him edits, and then it's up and we're on our way. And so, I think now I have a team, thank God, and it's not so much because I can't handle YouTube, but it's because my business has completely exploded, especially on the Bundlework Nurses side in the last year, but also on the Bundleverse side. And so, because of that, we now have the revenue to hire and continue to grow. And that's, to me, what I'd heard. Again, no business degree here, but I'm a sponge to the world. And at some point, that hiring is where every business person hits their roadblock. They either hire and invest to grow, or they hit a standstill by not expanding their team. And at some point, the question needs to move from how am I going to do it versus who's going to do it. And when you get that who's going to do it at play, and now my next and newfound goal is, how do I remove myself from everything? Because there's always more for me to do. And my brain is really the creative genius of the business, right? So I need to be freed up to do what only I can do, which is all the content, the product, the solution, and I set my team away to help me realize it. So this is new. And, I feel so grateful and so blessed. But to be honest, it wasn't until I hired an assistant in 2021, and it is 2022. So we've only been here
Not
for a
that long.
year, and everything up until this point has been done by me.
Wow, that probably feels amazing, huh? Like you finally reached a point where you can kind of show up and do the stuff that you really want to do, and then you have other people who take care of the rest.
I could cry. It feels so amazing. And like the moments in the last few months where I've just been like the relief and the weight of literally working 24/7, guys. 16, 18-hour days, 7 days a week. And when you're sleeping, you're thinking about work, And so now, I went to dinner 2 nights ago with a friend, and I came home and I didn't even have my computer in my house. That has not happened. And I've worked very hard to get to a place where it is now possible. And again, I'm not opposed to doing it, but at some point, my capacity is only so much, and I want to be my best for the world. So, and in order to do that, I am at the place where I definitely need help. So, yes.
Yeah, and I like you said about you being the creative genius of your business, because that's true. And I think people don't necessarily understand that, especially with YouTube or something kind of creative where you have to present yourself to the world. It is really important that you are in a good headspace where you're, of course, making sound decisions about where to go next, how to pivot. You have a good camera presence, you don't seem kind of tired or subdued or overwhelmed, like you're somebody that people want to hear speak.
Totally.
And I know in the past, like for my channel, Treesicle, I was kind of doing so many different things that I kind of felt like I couldn't quite step back and have the bird's eye view of the channel. And that was difficult. And that was just kind of how things had to work at the time. But I think that was not good. The fact that you made it work so long and then only recently have had a team is super impressive to me. I don't know how you managed to do it.
I mean, when you originally reached out, I said, I am the tale of a disgruntled YouTuber. To be honest, if it weren't for the testimonials and if it weren't for the fact that, I know it's impacting people, and in places, this is really motivating for me, and in places where they don't have access or they maybe can't afford a childbirth class, this is my give back to the world. And so that keeps me going. But otherwise, the batch filming, the having help with the YouTube side and editing and all of that, huge. But now having help with the business, I'm even more hopeful now that I'm going to be even more inspired with doing some even more creative stuff. But to be honest, I've been in survival mode for the last year and a half minimum, probably more like 2 with YouTube, where it's you know what? I'm going to do it. And there's sort of that that 80% rule, it's 80% good enough that 20% is going to take so much more effort to get it to a 90-100 than it would to just let it go, that I know the content out there. First of all, they're going to be better after watching my videos. no matter if I put another 5 hours into prep or filming it differently or changing shots or, all the other creative things that in theory I could do. And so I think there comes a point for everybody. I mean, I relate so much to what you said that like there were days when I would go to film. Now, mind you, if I have someone coming to film with me, I got to rein it in. But when I do it myself, that I would be like, today's not the day. I can't, I don't have it in me. I don't want to do it. I don't. And I have a bad attitude. That's going to be translated to camera. And if I'm going to put it out there, like I really actually care about what I'm saying and I want to act like I care about what I'm saying. So there would be days we'd be fully set up and I'd be like, nope, not happening. And that boundary, I mean, there were other days where I'm like, well, you just got to suck it up. And then I cry afterwards, So I've definitely had those days too. But I think it's finding that balance of knowing yourself enough to know, like, can I rein it in or can I let it go for today? There was a couple weeks ago that for the first time in a very long time that I was like, you know what? I'm not going to post. I don't have a video this week. It's not ready. It's too much to get it together. I was traveling and onboarding new staff and like, I just was like, ah. And in the grand scheme of things, no one really cares. There's so much you can watch on the channel. There's more things coming. They'll get it eventually. They can wait a week in my mind, and some people are a lot more regimented and disciplined than that. But for me, I want to be around and I want to do this as long as I feel called to do this. And at sometimes that may mean setting some boundaries or saying, not today, or that I'm not going to post this week, and I actually put like a little note on the community page and said, hey, it's a crazy week. I love you all. I will be back next week, but I need to take a breather this week. We're not going to have a video. And like, I got like 32 likes, no one cares at all. It's not like people are like waiting around being like, oh my God, Sarah's the center of my universe. Like, no. And that I think sometimes, and there would have been a time in my life when I was so obsessed and looking at all the analytics and, oh my gosh, they like this versus this. And I do some of that now, but I only do that when it feels life affirming to me. And when I feel like I'm actually going to do something with it. Because the moment I get down the spiral of analytics, I'm like, oh my gosh, there's all the things I'm not doing. And then the answer is I don't feel like I can do them. And then I just feel horrible about myself versus like, I don't need to look because nothing's going to become of it. And so we say this in nursing, like, unless it's going to change the plan of care, don't do the intervention. And so it's sort of that same idea with this. And so those are some of the boundaries that I feel like I've set up for myself in YouTube survival land after 4.5 years of doing this.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that can be a difficult thing to do because I know for me, I don't know if I ever didn't film a video because I felt like I couldn't. I think there was a long stretch of time where I never really felt like filming a video, so it was kind of like I couldn't really differentiate between when was good and when wasn't. So props to you for kind of like having the self-awareness to know when isn't a good time, when isn't a good time, and to just be realistic about it. So you said that you have Bundlework Nurses, which is kind of like your newest addition to your business here. I would like to hear more about that, and also kind of what is going into the launch of that.
Yeah. So Bundlework Nurses has been a really fun surprise for me. I am a nurse by background. I trained nurses. I precepted nurses. I educated nurses. And education and support are my thing. And so I always sensed that I would go there. But honestly, nursing is like a pretty hard reach. And getting into hospitals and where do you get the audience and all of that just felt really overwhelming to me. And so until I met Justine, who is my director of Bundlework Nurses, and we just were on the same mission together. And I had a class in my mind that to me would help impact families even more than the work that I was doing, either one-on-one or even on YouTube. Because I can tell families till I'm blue in the face all the things they should ask for, all the things that are evidence-based, etc. They show up to the hospital, the nurse goes, that's not how we do things. And they're just totally disempowered. Versus the nurses in the hospital, what happens, they have 2, maybe up to 4, 5, 10 families that they interact with in a shift. the multiplication of impact is so much greater in the nurses side than maybe even the family side. And so, I had this class and I decided, you know what, we're going to do it. And mind you, Justine got pregnant and was very sick. So I ended up doing most of it myself, actually all of it myself until she helped at the very end. And so we launched a class for nurses in LA. There were 46 seats and it was in person, the most hands-on class you could imagine, in January of 2020. Really with dreams to take it national and, all these things. And then guess what happened? The world shut down and we had to pivot. And in the meantime, she was building out the Bundlework Nurses social media presence on Instagram and sending them to YouTube. So there's a lot of pass through with that, because what we found was nurses were going to my channel to learn how to explain and educate to their patients. Or they were using that, particularly I have a triage playlist that's for nurses that they're triaging a client. They come into the hospital, they've decided if they stay or they go, and they're like, hey, you have round ligament pain. I don't want to sit for 15 minutes, or I can't sit for 15 minutes, but here's a YouTube video for you to watch. And so there's a ton of overlap on that realm of things. So we did the class. Justine pushed me to put it online. And so what we did was we put the physiologic birth class online, and now we currently have educated in the last year and change over 1,900 providers worldwide. In the meantime, we put together a 12-month mentorship program for nurses. That's 12 of the heavy hitter nursing topics with videos and workbooks. They get a call a month with my mentees. I have 4 mentors on staff, 5 actually on staff, that mentor these nurses through their 12 months. And, and I will say, here's the fun part, that I was able to do all of that because of YouTube. Because what happened was I had this brilliant idea of mentorship, and guess what? Where I'm like, well, I have the whole equipment and studio and editor and process, and I've done this. I've been on camera. If we need a teleprompt, no problem. And it was just the most seamless transition ever to move into creating that kind of intense content. There's over 270 modules we made in 1 year. That's nursing related education. There's a 380-page workbook. So when I say I've been working hard, it has been a couple of years in the best way. So we offer that. We're actually launching a podcast coming up for nurses, and then a whole lot of products have come out of that. And I will say that the majority of my sales in the last year, and we've tripled revenue, have been from nurses. And wow. I every time I have a business conversation, the one thing, there were a lot of things I tried and was like, oh, that didn't go so hot. But with YouTube, I just had this internal knowing that, like, just keep going. You can't give up on it. Just keep going. And even on Instagram, like, I haven't posted on Instagram in like a month, but I keep up with YouTube, And so that's one thing that I have held on to, and that to me is our free advertising, our free marketing, our way to loop people in, to send them off. And then in every video, I'm like, hey, if you want more, go to bundlebirth.com. If you're a labor and delivery nurse and you found this helpful, we have so much there for you, because nurses are struggling as well. And if we can keep the nurse healthy and well and educated and up to date on their practice and confident in their practice, they're going to give better care to the families that are watching me on YouTube and taking my childbirth classes. The best part is when the patient shows up to the hospital, having taken my classes, ready to go. They walk in and their nurse is wearing one of our team underwear pins or pulls out their Bundleworth position guide, and they both go, oh my gosh, you know Bundleworth? And they're speaking the exact same language. There's instant rapport, there's instant safety, and I feel confident, if they're a Bundleworth nurse, that they are giving amazing care to the families that are walking through those doors. And that to me is absolutely everything.
Wow. So you've really managed to take this kind of online business and translate it into the real world with like real people. And I mean, that's really cool. That's quite unique as well. I talked to a lot of YouTubers, and I think the most common story is it tends to be either online consulting or selling courses is obviously common, but kind of translating this online presence into two people interacting in the real
Mhm.
world and having a rapport is very unusual. I can say that with confidence, and I'm quite impressed. I guess you could say it's just like, yeah, that's
Thank
really
you.
cool. You've really managed to affect the world. So like, this is kind of like a new big thing for you. Is this kind of your biggest new project? Do you have any other
Mhm.
kind of loftier goals on the
Oh,
horizon as well that
yes.
you're comfortable sharing?
I am the biggest dreamer you'll ever meet in your entire life. I really actually don't believe that we have any limits other than maybe like me flying without an airplane, you know? I am a huge dreamer, huge thinker. I want bundle birth in every home that has a baby. I am very open. And one of the first business advice I ever got, I was in a one-on-one class in a house in LA. She was an interior designer and he was an architect and they designed their home. So I was like, oh, what is this place? It was amazing. And I taught the class. She asked for my slides. I was like, no, they're not copywritten. Like, I don't really want them floating around. And she said, no problem. Like, I have zero qualms with that. Thank you so much. She said, but I want you to know something, that what you are selling is yourself, Sarah. No one can be you, and no one will teach these slides like you teach them. And I was like, okay, paying attention. Again, I'm a sponge. I am a mess. I am so stressed about this business. I have no idea what I'm doing. I have no idea. I mean, literally bled through my entire savings, and I'd been debt free for 5 years prior to leaving the hospital. So like, I mean, zero to zero. And she said, the best piece of business advice anyone ever told me, and I'm like, tell me, and she said, is let your business grow organically. And I was like, oh, like, thank you. What the heck does that mean? But I remembered it because I was like, if this is the most important business lesson both of these very successful people have learned, like, I'm in for it, like, I got it. It's locked in. I will figure that out. And to be honest, what that's become for me and why I tell that story so frequently is because, like, originally my idea was a brick and mortar in LA. And imagine looking back on the last 5 years, how
Ooh.
hard that would have been.
Mm-hmm.
And I
Yep.
think what I have held on to is, what's the mission? What's the goal? What do I want to accomplish? And really, I want to change the world. I want people healed. I want them to avoid trauma in their birth experiences. I want them confident in their bodies, and I want their birth to transform their life and lead them into a more bonded, healthy parenting experience, which, guess what? The number one indicator of life success for children is establishing healthy, secure attachment. So when they're bonded to their families are attuned to them, they have better outcomes in their future. So to me, everything we're doing is literally changing the future of our generations through their parents and through their birth experience. And so, again, I'm a big thinker, but I really truly live that way. I see things that way. And so as far as future goals, I know that was the actual question. Um, I am actually in a place where I have no idea what is next. I have a lot of dreams, and I have a lot of ideas, but I'm in the place of holding them very loosely, flexing and flowing, and saying, how does this business grow organically? Really looking and watching for signs of what's next for me. And I have luckily had a lot of moments where I've just kind of like, zoom, had a knowing of like mentorship, the idea for mentorship, which is our like very successful program for nurses. That I like saw it in a moment. I was like, that's what we're doing next. And that's me being leadership and CEO of the visionary, that I do sense that next step is moving away from nurses. Nurses kind of is its own oiled machine now, and moving back into the family side. Positioning myself maybe differently in the marketplace. I have app ideas. I have 3 book ideas in my head that are like written in my head, but I just need to get on paper. I have a couple TV shows. I've been scoped out for TV a couple of times. So I'm speaking that all in faith, but not knowing at all
Whoa.
what's next for me. But also really excited about that, because as it comes, I feel confident that I will have a knowing of like, this is our next step. And right now I've felt strangely that like, it's tie up the loose ends, wrap it all up, get your head on straight, organize your business, hire, I'm pointing this way because he's sitting right here, the COO to take over operations. I am doing way too much shipping and laminating and errands, like that can be handled by somebody else. There's a lot that only I can do. And I need to be in a place where I'm freed up to be available for whatever lands on my plate next. So lots of ideas. We are barely getting started. And now I feel like we have grown our roots deep enough that when the winds come or when the opportunities come, we will be in a position where we can take them and really see what's next.
Wow. And so it sounds like you are very in touch with your intuition. Has this always been the case? Is this something you had to work on? How does that work for you?
Ooh, that's a heavy question. That has for sure been a work in progress. I think I've had to learn to trust myself, particularly through this business. And I think there's a balance between, well, trusting yourself and then also sort of this freedom to fail, that like not holding it as Bible, that when I have a sense about something or like, I can see how this would work. It's taking calculated risks, but I think it also takes a slowing and a stopping to go, let me actually think about this. I have a pretty strict morning routine where I journal and I meditate and I slow and I drink my coffee, and now it's on my patio, which I love. And, so I am, and then even at night, like I try to be very in tune with that, like intuition, knowing it also has to do with my faith. So, this awareness, but you have to like stop long enough to be aware. And I think when I've been in moments where I've been so busy and just like knock it out, next thing, there's deadlines and people asking for things and on and that I think you can miss that unless you set aside intentional time to go, wait a second, how does this feel to me? And I had a moment, actually, I will give credit where credit's due, with Cleo Wade. If anyone knows who that is, she is a client of mine. She's an author, activist. She's probably one of, if not the most amazing person I've ever met in person, and the most generous. And I was working with her for her second baby, and I was telling her about my life and my business. She was the one that told me I needed to hire an assistant with her first baby. And I was like, you're a wise person, I'll listen. And then by the time she had her second, I was like, I have an assistant now. And I was just kind of venting to her about like, this is where I'm at, and I need to like build some new rhythms, and I need to do this, and I need to do that, and I need to do this. And she goes, what if you just, and you've heard me use it, she goes, what if you just made decisions through the lens of what is life affirming? And use the words life affirming. And that has become like, you've heard, I know I've said it throughout today. And that phrase has, to me, helped with the intuition of, there's always a choice we have to make, right? If it's a yes to me, it's a no to someone else. Or if it's a no to someone else, I'm saying yes to something. I'm saying yes to something else. And so rather than it being this, like, I have to do all things, I've really worked hard very recently on being like, how does that feel for me? And by me, I also mean the people that are a part of me and I'm protecting, which is my staff, which is my baby, which is Bundlework, and does this fit with the mission? I can't do and be all things to all people, but does it sit with my values, and does it sit in integrity with who I am? Does that feel life affirming? Because guess what? It's just what we were talking about with the podcast, that like your podcast with YouTube, that like, if I'm not feeling it, you get a different result. And that I really believe for life, that if it's not life affirming to me, if I'm like, what happens is I get resentful for the person I said yes to, right? Or I get resentful about having to do the thing that I agreed to, versus I can now, when I say yes, you're getting like a legitimate, authentic yes from me. That, like, for instance, today, I'm like, great, that's fun. I am genuinely, I love to be here. This is a no problem hour of my life because it fits with the mission. And I love connecting. I love pouring into people. I love sharing the knowledge that I've learned. And if you can take one nugget from this, like, I've done my job. That feels very life affirming to me. And guess what? When I'm living in that intuition, then the world benefits because they get an authentic version of myself.
Mm, wonderful. And I like what you said about stopping and kind of like taking time to, you have a morning routine, you journal, you meditate, you drink your coffee, kind of think about things. It sounds like you have some still time in the evening as
Mhm.
well. I think when a lot of entrepreneurs are talking about how busy they are, that it can kind of get lost in the sauce that most people, unless you're, I don't know, maybe occasionally somebody can get away with not stopping ever,
Mhm.
but usually you do need some stoppage time to really think about things and think about your life and what you really want, and is what I'm doing a good
Mhm.
decision? Because when you have tunnel vision and you're just like go 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 go, you may work really hard on something that maybe wasn't a great idea
Yes.
to begin with. Like if you had just thought about it a bit more
In there.
before jumping down the rabbit hole.
Yep.
As have I.
Mhm.
And yeah, it's kind of counterintuitive, but I think it's a really important point, and I'm glad you mentioned it.
Yep. Yep. Well, and that slowing, to be honest, is a decision that we all make. And I think it's so easy to think like I have no time, and I have been there. This is literally in the last like probably 8 or 9 months that I have been living differently, but I can't tell you how much I have grown and how much fruit has come from that decision to I'm talking like 30 minutes. And if it means 30 minutes less sleep, guess what? It's not going to make much of a difference. And for your brain's sake, to establish some of those routines, and really there's a ton of brain science with this too, of down regulating your nervous system, thinking clearly, sort of getting your I'm going to say manifestations because I'm in LA, but like, like getting your intention set for the day of like, who do I want to be today? And what do I want to accomplish? And how do I want to treat people versus like, "Rah, rah, 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 rah," and next thing you know, you're like, oh, I hate everybody, and that no one wants to live like that. And so for me, what I've found is that by choosing to make that decision, I'm actually more productive in my days, and I'm more fulfilled because I'm acting from a place that truly is who I am inside versus like this unknown, disgruntled, tired, unaware human. That's not who I want to be.
Yeah, I think it's not who anybody wants to be, though some people don't know it. They live that life and they don't even realize it. And okay, well, I feel like I have learned a lot
Oh,
today.
good.
You like I said, the fact that you're able to translate this online traffic into things that
Yeah.
happen in the real world is really cool to me.
Thank you.
It's very inspiring. I have lived most of my career behind a computer screen, affecting things online, and this is kind of like, I don't know. It feels good to know that this is a thing that people do, especially like, you hear a lot about people growing businesses, and it usually involves like selling software or
Right.
widgets
Right.
or keychains or whatever, and that's fine. But the fact that you I feel like you kind of took the opposite approach. Like you did birth and pregnancy, and like, I don't know, it's very personal,
Mhm.
it's not something that is obviously scalable, but
Mhm.
obviously you've managed to scale it. And I don't know, this is like such an interesting niche to me. I feel
Mhm.
like, I don't know, I've told you that a million times,
Aw,
but it's super
thank
cool. It's super
you.
interesting.
Thank you.
So, why don't you tell people where they can find you? Pitch your stuff. Be
Yeah.
shameless.
So the easiest way is to head on over to bundlebirth.com. If you're a labor and delivery nurse or you're curious about the nursing side, we actually have a different website, but you can find it from the Bundlebirth website. That's bundleworknurses.com. I'm on YouTube as Sarah Lavonne, Lavonne, and then I'm on Instagram at Bundlebirth or Sarah Lavonne. Sarah Lavonne's my personal, but I've been like spending a lot more time on that one just because it feels more life affirming to me recently. So that's where you can find me. And then if you have pregnant friends, on the Bundleverse site is all of my online classes. I do one-on-one calls. I offer in-person and virtual support. I say loosely only because I do have a limited number of clients that I take. And then, yeah, that's really it.
Wonderful. Thank you so much, Sarah. Thanks for joining me today, and I really enjoyed our
Thank
conversation.
you so much for having me. So did I.
Yeah, right on. And for you watching, whoever you are, maybe subscribe to this podcast. If I mean, you made it this far, you probably liked the episode, right? So why don't you hit that awesome subscribe button or follow or whatever platform you're on, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye, everybody.